Hi, I'm Thomas Bowles, Prince William County Agricultural Extension Agent. Welcome to our video.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 11 o'clock. Welcome to this week's presentation. This week we have seed saving from Jannell Bryant. She's one of our master gardeners here in Prince William County. And Jannell, whenever you're ready, go ahead and...
Okay, everyone hear me? Good morning to all the master gardeners and gardeners out there. Our topic for today is seed saving. Hello, my name is Jannell Bryant and I have been a Prince William County master gardener since 2011. And for most of that time, I have been a bed leader or co-leader of the native bed. I also grow seasonal veggies in a small raised bed at the teaching garden, and recently, after a hiatus because of the pandemic, I returned as a leader of a native habitat garden at a local Woodbridge High School. I have been saving flower seeds for several years now and using the simplest method possible. It turns out that my way of collecting seeds does in fact have a name, and it is the dry seed method. Saving your best veggie seeds from the healthiest and robust vegetables actually has a name: wet seed method or fermentation. I'm sure there are many and varied ways and methods of collecting and saving seeds, and if you have a method that works for you, stick with that method. The golden Alexander seeds above were dried and then shaken out of the flower heads. As you can see, these seeds are very small. I then shook them through a fine wire strainer to get the bits of flower stalks and chaff out before storing in the little plastic bags shown later. Notice how nice and black they look, and they should germinate easily next year. This is an outline of what we're going to cover today. If you can just read through. First is brief history, and we're going to do ancient times and the present. Ancient peoples began making the move from hunter-gatherer to farmers in the Neolithic period about 10 to 14,000 years ago, building plant crops the following year. Hence, seed saving became a vital necessity in order for the village to survive and prosper. Today, seed saving has become a fun project to undertake at the end of the growing season, especially if you have certain veggies or beautiful flowers that you wish to grow again, as they performed well in your garden. By saving the seeds from your best plants at the end of the growing season, you keep viable the plants that do well in your particular garden soil, as well as being an economical way to keep your garden looking beautiful from year to year. Buying new seeds each year can be expensive and sometimes disappointing. To know before starting. Avoid seeds from F1 hybrids, as you will be disappointed with the results. I learned this the hard way. New plants that did not look like the parent plant. Best to stay with old-fashioned heirloom and heritage varieties and native plants. Some plants self-pollinate, including beans, peas, tomatoes, and are easy to save the seeds at the end of the growing season. Other vegetables are cross-pollinated from nearby plants. These include corn, squash, pumpkins, melons, and cucumbers. Planting two varieties of one species close by will result in cross-pollination and will be different from the parent plant that you want to save. Plant these varieties in separate areas of your property to avoid cross-pollination, or better still, plant only one variety to save the seeds from. Insects, and especially bees, play a major role in plant pollination. Other plants like corn, beets, spinach, and chard are pollinated by wind. Only fully ripe seeds are viable for planting next spring. If the fruits are picked before fully ripened, the seeds will not germinate. Now we go preparing different types of seeds, and we're going to start off with annual flowers, and here we have some marigolds and their seeds. Marigold seeds that have been dried for several weeks and ready to put into an envelope for storage till next growing season. These seeds are larger, so best to hand sort. Some of the easiest seeds to save are those of flowers, both annual and perennial, gathered after ripening in late summer into the fall. Spring flower seeds heads are gathered in early summer. My favourites are columbines and golden alexanders, which I save every year. Also marigolds, rudbeckias, purple coneflowers, sundrops, cosmos, poppies, zinnias, and yes, my favourite milkweeds. To save a few, don't be too strict with deadheading. Leave the flowery heads to mature and seeds to ripen on the plant. Ripe seeds are an important food source for songbirds, especially the ones migrating through. There will be plenty of flower heads for you to save and shake out the seeds for next year's plantings. I will address storage in more detail on another slide. And here we have zinnias and jewels of Opar. Beautiful zinnias blooming in the fall sunshine. Soon the plant will begin to die back and the flowers will fade. Be sure to cut off some spent flowers, stems and store in a paper bag to continue the drying process for a couple of weeks before shaking out and storing the seeds in envelopes. The beautiful jewels of Opar have been a minor sensation in the teaching garden this summer, and if you saw it in full bloom earlier in the season, you will understand why. Even now that it has passed full bloom and producing seeds, it is still a lovely plant. The sprays of tiny dark pink flowers make a delightful filler in a bouquet. In southern areas, it is a perennial, but in our region, it is an annual. So far, I have not collected any seeds off the plant, but will and store them till next growing season. I thought it worth a mention, and hopefully it will propagate easily. Stay tuned. And here we have sundrops with some seeds and milkweeds. Sundrops growing in my garden earlier in the summer, and we have the seeds dried for several weeks and are now ready to store in envelopes for next season. One of my favourites is milkweeds. This is a common milkweed, as the swamp and butterfly weed seed pods follicles are still green. I suggest you save swamp milkweed or butterfly weed, as common milkweed can prove to be very aggressive. It takes a while to separate the seeds from the fluffy parachutes of all three milkweed species. It may be best to do this step in the garage, as the parachutes will fly around. Finally, the seeds are ready to put into envelopes to store. When ready to harvest seeds, choose a nice sunny day to get started. Using clean and sanitized scissors and garden shears, harvest ripe seed heads from the best, most robust plants. I usually cut the flower stalks off and store in a paper bag or garden tote for several weeks or more to make sure the seeds are completely dry. Dry seed is viable seed. Be sure to label all the bags with the flower name and date collected. I find many of the seeds fall out on their own and will only need to shake around, and you will have seeds to store in envelopes. This method of collecting and drying seeds is the dry seed method, and is very, very easy. And I'll address the storing in another slide. And here we have cardoon flower. Samara cardinunculus, common name cardoon, lovingly referred to as Madam Cardoon, happily grows in the section of the veggie bed at the teaching garden. The cardoon is a native of the Mediterranean region and is a thistle in the sunflower family. As you can see from the beautiful purple flower above, it is popular with pollinators. The matured seed pods are quite large and really spiky to handle, so wearing gloves is recommended. I used a large carving knife to cut through the pod to expose the base of the pod where the seeds are. The process is somewhat messy, as the fluffy parachutes will float around. Once open, the seeds were easily extracted, and you can see the tiny seeds there on the left. To be sure the seeds are completely dry, I gathered them into a dish to dry for another week or two before putting into envelopes for storage in a dry, well-ventilated, dark place. A quick note. Many plants such as dandelions and milkweeds have seeds that are attached to what we refer to as parachute, which allows the ripe seed to float away on a breeze and begin new plants elsewhere. And here we have purple coneflowers. I had to include the ever popular purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea, as it is one of my favourite flowers to grow. The spiky cones above hold the seeds, and I managed to gather these before the songbirds devoured them and leave the cones quite bare. Collect the now ripe seed heads and store in a paper bag for a couple of weeks to make sure the seed is completely dry. Then remove the seeds from the cone and store in a jar or envelope for storage. An easy process to complete. Factoid, have you ever wondered how many purple coneflower seeds it takes to weigh 1 pound? Know the answer? Put the answer in the chat box. I generally put a heaping tablespoon of seeds into each envelope. Very large seeds like nasturtiums, I will put about 2 tablespoons of seeds into each bag. I like to be generous if I am sharing the seeds with other gardeners. These are a few of the seeds, pods, cones, nuts and berries I found along my cul-de-sac, and you will probably find many more selections on your street. Many of these seed-containing packages will dry out, explode, disperse on the wind, be eaten by birds and animals, and self-seed with no help from us. Botanists have come up with many different names for the various shapes of seed capsules and berries. Here are just a few names to look up. Samara, Follicle, Drupe, Achene, Poricidal Capsule, Pepo and Legume. Know the answers? Type the answers in the chat box. Using the correct seed drying method, you can save all of these seeds and berries and just about any other seed or berry you can think of to plant in your yard or public space in your neighbourhood. I generally only collect and save seeds from my perennials, but this year I saved seeds from some as well. And we have here lyre leaf sage, sunflower seed heads, and gourd bag seed heads. Lyre leaf sage or Salvia lyrata, stems cut and ready to be tied together in a paper bag in a dry place with good air circulation. I dry my seeds inside a bag on a hook attached to a ladder in my garage, and it's actually a perfect spot. Large sunflower head at the end of the growing season. Notice that the plant is dying back and the seeds will be ripe soon after. This is an easy plant to pop out the seeds after they have dried on the plant. Store another 2 weeks in a paper bag to finish the drying process. This is a fun project that you can include your young children or grandchildren in helping to collect the big, shiny black seeds. Be sure to cut down the seed head before the birds devour most of the lovely seeds. Use small organza or muslin bags to tie over favourite perennial flowers to keep the birds from eating the seeds of the special flowers you want to save seeds from. Don't store the ripe and dried seeds in these bags as the seeds won't dry out and will be spoiled. Now here we have some veggies, green beans and garlic. Seed saving can be a really fun project to undertake with your young children, and the easiest seeds to save are those of beans and peas, legumes. After the plants die back and the pods turn from green to brown and ripen, and all you need to do is let your little one pop out the seeds and spread on paper for a week or two to complete the drying process, and let them drop the seeds into a clean jar, label and put your child's name on it as well. Garlic. After lifting garlic in June and set aside your largest bulbs, you will need to save just a few for planting in the fall. By using only your very best quality bulbs to ensure that you will have high quality garlic bulbs every year, hang the garlic bulbs in a dry place with good air circulation and store separately from the garlic to be consumed. I hung mine in the garage till needed. In October, break up the bulbs and use only the largest blemish-free garlic cloves for planting. In fact, I have just planted the garlic cloves that will be ready for harvest next June. And here we have cherry tomatoes. I don't usually save veggie seeds, but this year I have given it a try. For fleshy fruits and vegetables such as tomatoes, squash, pumpkins, melons, etc., the method is called wet-seeded method or fermentation. I squeeze some red cherry tomato seeds into a mason jar and add tap water to cover the seeds and swirl it a few times. Every day for the next 3 or 4 days, I swirl the jar and let it sit. This is to remove the jelly-like coating around each tomato seed. Then I strain the seeds through a wire strainer and spread them to dry on paper. Newspaper will do, or other suitable paper. The seeds tend to stick to paper towels. When dry, spread the seeds on a plate to dry for another 2 weeks. Remember, dry seed is viable seed. Now they are ready to store in an envelope or envelopes or mason jar. Name of seed and dated. Store seeds will last up to about 4 years. Factoid: tomato seeds stored under perfect conditions will remain viable for 100 years. I have not tried the process of drying fleshy fruits and vegetable seeds, but here is a quick description of the process. Fleshy fruits like large tomatoes, melons, and cucumbers, you will need to wash and separate the seeds from the pulp first before putting them into a jar or even a bucket with water for the seeds to ferment for a few days to dissolve the gel, or as some people call it, goo, around the seeds. Then strain the seeds from the fermented liquid. It will be a bit stinky, fermentation happening, and dry on paper, then spread on a plate for at least 2 weeks to complete the drying process before storing. Remember, completely dry seed is viable seed. Now we come to some storage. The seeds in the plastic bags above are columbines, golden alexanders, and blue wild indigo, which I collected and dried earlier in the summer. I used plastic bags as they were given away at Master Gardener's fall plant sale. The plastic bags allow individuals to see the seeds without opening the packet. The seeds on the right have been completely dried and packaged into envelopes and mason jar ready for sowing next spring. Storing seeds. Store the seeds in a clean, airtight containers in a cool, dark, dry spot for the winter. They should be viable for several years stored this way. Seeds that get damaged or become damp or moldy will not germinate. Special seed-saving envelopes can be purchased. Seed-saving cone-shaped envelopes can also be purchased. I had these old airmail envelopes on hand and they work just fine. Some seeds require cold conditions called stratification and can be stored easily in a refrigerator or freezer. Now, I have tried this in the past with no success. Some varieties of seeds will be viable for longer using this method. Store the seeds at 34 to 41 degrees Fahrenheit for up to 12 weeks. Some wildflower seeds can be stored in the freezer for about 5 weeks. Even under perfect storage conditions, not all seeds will germinate. Milkweeds in particular have low germination rates, so always be sure to store plenty of seed for the next year. You can always pull out unwanted seedlings or pot up for a plant sale, but you can't do much if no seeds germinate. Now here's some more seed source ideas. And I've got some flowers, some vegetables and some herbs. These are just a few more plants that you can save the seeds from year to year. There are quite literally hundreds more plants you can try saving seeds from. Some will be easy to dry. Others will be a little more involved and require some time and patience to achieve results. Biennial plants must winter over and will produce a flower head that produces seeds the following growing season. Now here are seed saving no-nos, and I have here a collection of various seed containing natural packages from flowers, vegetables and trees around my neighbourhood. Do not save seeds of F1 hybrids. You may be disappointed with the results. Native flowers, heirloom, heritage and non-GMO vegetables are best choice for saving seeds. Damp, mouldy or damaged seed is not viable seed. Seed collected before fully ripened will not germinate. Discard shriveled, very small or lighter coloured looking seeds as they will not germinate. Examine large veggie seeds carefully when they are fully dry. They should be big and full. If they are flat and empty looking, don't keep as they will not germinate. Don't store your precious seeds in an open container or box on an open shelf as they may be eaten by bugs and vermin. Please do not dry seeds from invasive species or plants that are very aggressive. It's best to avoid using plastic bags for drying and storing as the plastic could make the seeds sweat for lack of proper air circulation and could result in seeds that will not germinate. Paper bags or envelopes are best choice. I have some websites here and also a short closing summary. Some vegetables for you to peruse. I checked them out and they contain excellent information, practical and helpful tips and also videos to watch. I checked on the gauze and muslin bags and they are easily available online and you can also purchase them at a party store. Lastly, a quick note on leftover store-bought seeds. Fold over the tops of open packages and store in a cardboard or wooden file box and add the seeds you dried and packaged this season also. In closing, saving seeds from your garden is an easy and fun project and you will be well rewarded with seeds to sow into your garden next year. Remember, it is an economical and rewarding way to enjoy favourite flowers and veggies from year to year. And we have here, these are the upcoming classes for you to sign up for. Tree planting, ever popular holiday arrangements, and garden goodies. That's going to be a presentation on Master Gardener's favourite tools to use in the garden and also winter sowing. Thank you, and I will endeavour to answer some of your questions. Okay. Thomas, I can't see the questions.
I'll read them to you, Jannell.
Thank you.
I've got to scroll up.
I hope I can answer them.
Okay. Harriet, what did you have a question? Well, wait, I don't know if she's there.
I think she was responding to one of the things that Jannell, the number of seeds in a pound for the cornflower.
I see. Tess says, I found that placing dry seeds in muslin bags and hanging outside to overwinter naturally but safely that I can stratify them. Any comments about that? Leaving them outside or in the refrigerator? Or...
I haven't tried that, but yes, a lot of seeds need to be frozen, have it go through a cold period. And I think if you leave them in the muslin bags, the seeds may actually start dropping off and you might lose some if you haven't tied them on very tightly. I think probably putting them in the freezer or the refrigerator would be a safer method.
The only
Or
thing
it-
about putting them in the refrigerator or freezer is that you need to be careful of the humidity.
Yes, yeah. I personally haven't not had luck with putting seeds in the refrigerator or freezer, but apparently if you put them in, put the seeds in a plastic bag with about a quarter a cup of sand or a bit more, depending on how many seeds, and close it up very, very tightly, you can keep it in the freezer for about 5 weeks or so, and that gives you the dormant frozen time for particularly some wildflowers.
Laurel asked to double check envelopes are to be placed in sealed containers.
I think in the sealed containers like mason jars, just put the seeds in, and the mason jar you saw there, I had an envelope in there with the name of the seeds so that I wouldn't forget what they were. They need to be stored in a clean, dry place with air circulation. So if you put them in a box or something, don't put the seeds in, tightly pack them or anything. They've just got to have some air circulation around them. But the important thing is to keep your seeds dry. And that if they're spoiled in any way, they will not germinate.
Tess says muslin bags are tightly closed and I've had some good success with that.
Oh, well, if it works, that's fine. And that's, I've only tried the muslin bags this year and I still have them on some of my plants outside. So I might leave them there over the winter and see how they turn out.
I've had some good success leaving, back to the cold question, in the shed, because it gets cold in the shed, and also in my garage.
Yes, I always hang mine on a ladder in the garage hang from a hook, and I find that I have good air circulation in the garage and it doesn't get too humid in there. And it does get cold in the winter, so that they do have a bit of a dormant period.
Yes, that's a great idea, the ladder. So Laurel asks...
That was the only space I had.
So Laurel asks, so how do the mason jars provide air circulation?
Well, those, you would keep them in the mason jar. I mean, my parents kept their seeds in the mason jars without any problems. There's some air in there. I think the important thing is that the seeds are completely dry when you put them in there. So there's no chance of moisture or anything to start fogging up the jar.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions? They can unmute and ask as well without typing. Okay, I think we're to the bottom unless somebody has.
Okay.
Christina says, I've used old prescription bottles and kept them in her shed. That I've done that too.
Yes, you can do that as well. Yes, I just use the envelopes and the mason jar that's what I had. Yeah, because prescription bottles work just fine.
Yeah.
And that. So, did anyone? What about the how many echinacea seeds in a pound? I'm looking here at 5,000 and I'm looking at 80 to 85,000. Well, someone did count and there's 1 million seeds in a pound of echinacea. So if you want to plant some in your garden, you don't need very many seeds before you have enough. It's teaspoon to a tablespoon and no more. I was surprised when I heard it was 1 million.
That's a lot. It's almost like a weed.
It's a lot, but I thought the person who counted them must have been very patient.
Yeah.
Also, did anyone come up with answers for the different seeds and berry names?
No, I don't see.
No?
No.
Okay, well, I'll tell you.
Oh, question. After you're done.
Okay. Samaras are the seeds from maples. You know those helicopters or whirligigs we call them? They're called Samaras. Milkweed pods are called follicles. Drupes are peaches and cherries, and also viburnums. Some of the viburnums that have berries on them are called drupes. An Achene is sunflowers. Poricidal Capsule is poppy. And Pepo is melon. Any of the melons. That's the seed, the hard rind with all the seeds inside is a Pepo. And legume are beans and peas. And there's many, many more. I could have gone on, but I thought they would be the easiest.
Leslie asks, have you ever saved pawpaw seeds?
Yes, my father used to save pawpaw. Do you mean the native pawpaw seed from here? The reason why I asked is that for me,
yes,
something else.
Yes, the native pawpaw seed from here.
No, I have not. I mean, it's hard enough trying to find a pawpaw that's not spoiled, and I have not tried it. No.
Pawpaw is perfect to harvest the seed.
Oh, lots more new messages.
Okay.
Yeah, any tips with pawpaw, but okay.
No, I have not tried pawpaw at all.
How to best store and keep nuts for replanting? And Harriet, do you mean like acorns and chestnuts? You can unmute yourself, Harriet.
I think with I don't know about chestnuts, but with acorns, you can keep it and plant the whole acorn, and that you don't break it out at all. You plant the whole with the shell still on it. That's the way it's mostly done in nature, and that's the way we should do it ourselves if you want an oak tree to grow.
Karen requests or asks for a visual of the names for future reference, various seed names. Karen, are you asking about the botanical names or the horticultural types of seeds? I think that's what she means.
What do you mean? Can you read that again?
It says
Show a visual of the names for future reference. I don't have, do you want me to show the flowers again that I've already shown? I don't have any others to show.
okay, well, maybe she'll type some more. Besides the stores, where can we buy seeds?
You can get seeds online, as well as nurseries. You can get seeds from your friends or fellow gardeners, and that's so. I don't think there's any problem in buying any kinds of seeds.
Harriet got back to us and she said she's currently drying American persimmon seeds. I guess I knew that. Any luck or suggestions?
No, I have not tried persimmon trees at all. That's something that I've rarely ever seen. So I don't. I think that the important thing is that what you'll have to do is the fermentation method, is because they would you would have to get the it's like a gel coating on a lot of seeds. You'll have to get that off with by putting it in a jar and letting it ferment for 3 or 4 days. Might even have to go 5 days, and then wash them afterwards and strain them and then see how they look.
She says the coating is off. It took a few days.
Yes. Well, if the coating is off, then dry them out on some paper if they're still wet. And then once they're dry, put them in I put mine in dishes and spread them out on a plate or a dish and let them dry for at least 2 weeks. And you must remember, the seeds must be dry seeds, and you must have ripe seeds, fully ripe seeds, and fully dried seeds for the seeds to be viable to grow next year. That's the two important things for all the seeds. They must be ripened, usually on the plant itself, and then dried, perfectly dried. And I've got a table here that I've got seeds sitting out on their drying just to make sure that they're completely dry before I store them.
She said, thank you. Jannell, so you mentioned the pawpaws, the fruit being rotten that you couldn't use. Wouldn't that be a natural process of the fruit?
Well, I think the only pawpaws that I've actually seen have been rotten on the ground and actually gone by because they've already been picked over.
So those seeds,
they're not readily available everywhere. The only place I know where pawpaws are in Sylvania Park in this area.
oh, they grow wild along the Occoquan. So people that have property that goes up to the Occoquan, like Sandra, who's on here somewhere, there's lots of them. So I think a lot of people with larger properties are probably getting a lot of fruit and seeds.
Yeah, but I think that if you want to save some of these seeds, you could try the fermentation method.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure that the coating on the seeds, that some of the seeds is like a jelly-like coating on them. That's got to come off, and then make sure that after you wash them and dry them, that they spread out on a plate and just dry for a couple of weeks to make sure the plants are dry, the seeds are dry enough, and then store them carefully and see how they grow next year. You may have to experiment with them over a couple of years. As I said, I don't have any luck with plants stored, seeds stored in the refrigerator or the freezer.
Okay, new question. How do I prepare black walnuts over the winter to be planted in the spring? If I leave the first outer cover on them, they will rot.
I have not tried saving seeds from walnuts. I am sure that if you break open the pod and dry them for as long as they're dried out, you might have a chance of getting them to grow. And I'm not sure whether they have to be stored in a refrigerator or a freezer. But as long as they're dried out very well, that may help.
A lot of times it's easier to let the black walnut seedlings come up in the yard and dig those up and transplant them rather than trying to save seed.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas.
Might be the same with persimmon, Harriet. Karen got back to us and she was referring to the lists such as Samara, Follicle, Drupes.
Oh, does she want me to go over those again?
I think
I don't have pictures of any of them.
Can perhaps, if you have a list, when Christina sends out the evaluation, she can include if you have a list.
Actually, I do have more. There's quite a number of them
Okay.
that I can send a list in. Yes.
That'd be great. Angie, I guess I bought some coleus plants online last year. I saved the seeds and planted them this year, and they were different from what I had last year. That's a great question.
Yes, that's probably because they're hybrids, and I've made the same mistake myself. The hybrids, you can save the seeds, but the new plant you get is not the same as what you were thinking you were going to get. That's why they say don't save the hybrid seeds.
Harriet Thomas said it's sometimes easier to let black walnuts germinate in your yard and then dig up the small plants. And I personally wondered if that would work for the persimmons too.
It probably may, yeah.
Yeah. In general, why do we have to save seeds like walnut? Just let Mother Nature take care of it.
Does everybody have a black walnut tree in their yard?
Yes.
So some people do and some people don't. So I guess it's a way of getting a plant to put in your yard.
Dale mentioned that he gets thousands of walnuts on the ground and have yet to see any new growth around the trees.
That's because they have a chemical in them that it prevents any plants from growing around the tree. I forget what the chemical name is offhand, but it's just one of those plants, and there are a few others in nature as well that any foreign plants or other plants that might be, shall we say, what's the word? Trying to compete, they kill it. I'm not sure the correct way to explain it, but that they don't allow foreign plants to grow anywhere under their canopy.
It's called allelopathy.
Then how would I wait for a new growth to appear then? If the tree itself is going to kill off any new shoots
Of a black walnut, right?
of a black walnut?
Well, you can pick up the walnuts and just put them in another area of your yard and see what happens. Black walnuts are not, to tell you the truth, are foreign to me. I don't know anything about them at all, but I do see them around, and there's a lot of them on the ground at the moment. Pick up some and put them in a different spot and see how they go.
Right now, the red squirrels got them all stored inside my motorhome.
Well, they're not going to grow in there.
No.
Take some out and just put them in, if you're going to plant them in your yard somewhere away from the tree, make sure that you mark the spot so you know where they are. And you can monitor them next spring into the summer to see if anything comes up.
All right, thank you.
And I want to mention that people are having good luck germinating acorns, especially white oak, since there's so many this year. It's a mass year in some areas in the county.
Yes, they're everywhere. We've got thousands of them in our yard from our neighbour's tree.
And they germinate pretty readily.
Mhm.
Laurel, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question instead of, so we can understand? She asks what.
I'm here.
Okay.
So it was just more of just a very basic question. I think I sort of know the answer. I was just wondering why we have to go through the process of saving seeds when the plants in our yard, their seeds will drop to the ground and theoretically should overwinter and come back. I was just wondering why they don't sometimes. Thank you.
Native plants will actually, if the seeds drop to the ground, they will certainly spring up and start shooting next spring without any problem at all, particularly some of the rudbeckias. Milkweeds will do the same. But some of the, and I know that I have impatiens that pop their seeds and they spread around everywhere. And I get impatient seeds that come up next spring as well, so you can transplant some of those out. I think the reason why some plants don't produce who drop their seeds and don't produce any plants the next year is because they're probably hybrids or something like that, and they just don't winter over well.
And also with respect to zinnias and marigolds, those are annuals, and
They are annuals, and some of those will actually regrow next year.
Yeah, and Baptisia is a perennial that is good to save seeds for.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and sometimes they every so often they will actually, and I don't know why some seeds will grow and some seeds don't. They will grow in your garden as well. They'll come up by themselves, but they're native.
I don't see any more questions.
Certainly non-natives might struggle, but all your emphasis on the seed heads needing to be dry, it is interesting that when they drop to the ground, they're certainly wet over the winter. So you would think that would not make them viable. Thank you.
Seeds that are particularly native plants, that of course they will drop their seeds to the ground, they'll blow around, they'll fly around and move, and little animals will eat them or take them to different spots and they will grow. That's the way nature intended. I think that seed saving, we want to save seeds and plant them in a particular spot rather than letting them grow willy-nilly anywhere. So we save the seeds. I mean, man has been saving seeds for in excess of 10,000 years. So it's important that the best seed is saved and planted for the next season.
Maybe the problem is when we're saving them in a jar envelope, you have a bunch of seeds together that fungus can grow in if there's any moisture. Whereas in nature, the seeds are landing on the soil, not in a clump of 100 together. And yes, you're right, man, they can take seeds that they find now that some of the permafrost is uncovering and melting in the Arctic, and they can germinate. So seeds can last a very, very long time. And man has been saving seeds for a very long time.
That's true. I mean, these days we don't have to save seeds. It's not necessary to do so. We can just go to the store or go online and buy whatever seed we want. But it's just a fun thing to do these days.
It's
rather than it being an absolute necessity.
It's also very interesting to read further about the seed savers in countries like India, because if there's groups that have been saving seeds for generations, because seeds have become very costly in agriculture.
There are people in this country who have kept up old heirloom plants over probably for a century or more. And now those particular seeds are highly sought after because they're the old-fashioned seeds, which most of the stores don't keep anymore. So that's a way of keeping old heirloom seeds going from season to season, is that some people save them and pass them along.
Thank you, Leslie, for the website. And Tess mentions that she believes Ernst Seeds online has good native seed.
So I just wanted to make a comment that most of the seeds in the world are kept in various seed saving vaults around the world. And even those seeds have to be brought out every so many years, and they plant them and let them go to seed to keep the seeds viable. Some plants may only last 50 years where other seeds will definitely last 100 years or more. But that's the way to keep an inventory of all the world's seeds. So I find I have not done a lot of reading on that, but it sounds as though it's very interesting to look into.
Well, they have found seeds on prehistoric sites and have successfely germinated them.
Yes, and I think they found in the pharaoh's tombs in Egypt, they find seeds, and they've been able to germinate some of those as well. In World War II in London, when the bombs were dropped, they left great craters in the ground, and they found that flowers grew from those craters that hadn't been seen for hundreds of years. So we still have a seed bank in the ground that's been there for probably centuries.
That's very interesting.
But I haven't done a lot of reading into that, so I'm not qualified to make too many comments.
Or snowbell. I'm going to go back and look at those a little more carefully.
Let's see one. Oh, Virginia says, fascinating article on seed bank Lebanon fighting climate change, New Yorker, so people can eat cereal crops in the warming world.
Mhm. Cereal crops have always been very, very important crops for particularly native peoples over the centuries to grow. I mean, it's essential. It's for them, it's food. Anything to do with food is worth saving. The seeds are worth saving.
Any more questions? That was a fantastic discussion, Jannell, and thank you for your presentation. I learned a lot, as always.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for taking the time to listen.
And this is
And happy gardening and seed collecting.
And I would like to mention that we have on our YouTube channel winter sowing presentation that was recorded last year. That's also very good, and it's a time to start thinking about saving your milk cartons for that. Thank you, Jannell.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you, Thomas.
You're welcome. If you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. My microphone's been going in and out, so. All right, we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jannell.
If you enjoyed this video, please let us know with your questions, comments, and suggestions for other classes and videos. For more information on lawns and gardens, please contact the Extension Horticulture Help Desk at mastergardener@pwcva.gov. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.